Welcome to Daily Sci-Fi Stories. Join us for the best in original sci-fi. Don't forget to like and subscribe. The dust of 1,000 celestial bodies clung to the hull of the Stardust Drifter, a fine metallic-tasting grit that got into everything. For Kalen, a man whose 58 years of life had been spent a quarter-inch from a control panel, that dust was the most constant thing he knew. He wasn't a hero, a captain, or a celebrated explorer. He was a miner, a glorified drill operator for Omnicorp, a company that saw the universe not as a canvas of wonder, but as a ledger of resources. Their current target was a rogue comet, designated Solstice, a frozen, lightless rock hurtling through the black. The corporate reports promised it was a bounty of rare Earth elements, enough to make a dozen new star drives. For Kalen, it was just another job, another series of long, lonely shifts in the thrumming belly of the drifter, surrounded by the sterile glow of diagnostic screens. Another day, another credit, he'd muttered to the silence, a mantra worn smooth by repetition. The drifter wasn't a luxury vessel. It was a brutalist, functionalist piece of machinery, all sharp angles and exposed conduits. The mess hall smelled of recycled air and burnt synthetic protein, a scent that had long since stopped bothering him. His bunk was a metal coffin with a thin mattress, and the only personal touch was a single, dog-eared paperback of ancient Earth poetry. His crewmates were just as functional as the ship. There was Captain Thorne, a man whose face was a permanent scowl of profit and loss calculations. Jax, the grizzled lead driller who communicated almost exclusively in grunts and sighs. And then there was Dr. Ilara Vance. She was the anomaly, a xenolinguist of all things, on a mining expedition. She'd been a last-minute addition, a condition for some obscure galactic rights compliance, and she was as out of place as a swan in a junkyard. Kalen had a strange sort of solace in her presence. While the others were focused on tonnage and credit projections, Ilara was fascinated by the comet itself. "She hums," she had said one day, her voice a low murmur as she watched her sensors. "Not like rock and ice, like a choir." Thorne had scoffed, muttering about her woo-woo science, but Kalen heard it too. A low, harmonic thrum that pulsed through the hull of the ship, a vibration just below the threshold of conscious thought. It was a rhythm that was steady, ancient, and utterly alien. He was on his shift monitoring the deep core drill. The readouts were consistent, a predictable descent through frozen hydrogen and silicate. But the hum was growing louder, more insistent. It felt less like a vibration and more like a whisper. He checked his diagnostics again, convinced it was a malfunction in the ship's grab dampeners. But the readouts were green. The hum was coming from the comet itself. He looked up at the main view screen, a silent, swirling portrait of lightless gray rock. "It's a trap," he heard Admiral Akbar's voice in his head, a line from an old, forgotten movie his father used to love. A half-joking warning that now felt unnervingly prescient. The feeling of wrongness deepened when the drill report suddenly went red. Not a malfunction, but a change in density. They'd hit something that wasn't rock. "The deep core drill has hit an anomaly," Kalen reported over the comms, his voice flat. "Not a mineral deposit. Reading as organic?" "Organic? It's a rock, Kalen, not a garden." "Sir, it's not a rock. It's warm. The temperature sensors are spiking." There was a long pause from the bridge. Then Torn's voice, laced with suspicion. "Well, that changes the equation. What's the value, Kalen? Can we process it, turn it into something that puts credits in our pockets?" Kalen stared at the flickering red light on his console. He could hear Ilara's voice in his ear, a low, urgent whisper that was just for him. "Kalen, don't let them. That hum, it's not a hum. It's a heartbeat." This was the moment, the point where a routine job for a glorified drill operator became something entirely different. The point where the cold, hard science of mining hit up against the warm, incomprehensible mystery of the unknown. Kalen knew, with a certainty that was both terrifying and exhilarating, that this wasn't about mining anymore. This was about discovery. And in the silent, star-strewn void, a heart had just begun to beat for the first time in 1,000,000 years. The fate of that heart, and of the things it contained, now rested in the worn, greasy hands of a man who was only ever meant to fix things. The silence that followed his report was heavier than the comet itself. The kind of silence that precedes a storm, a revolution, a first breath. It was a silence filled with the hum of a choir, the beat of a heart, and the question of what to do when you've accidentally found a god in the heart of a cosmic rock. The drill crew's reaction was a mix of confusion and avarice. Captain Thorne ordered Kalen to pull the drill bit back and send a diagnostic drone down the borehole. As the small, spider-like drone descended, Kalen and Alara watched the live feed on a shared console in the crew's common area. The drone's light cut through the inky blackness, reflecting on what looked like polished obsidian. The hum was now a distinct rhythmic thrum, and the heat signature was undeniable. "It's not a rock," Kalen said again, his voice barely a whisper. Ilara nodded, her eyes wide with a mix of awe and apprehension. "It's a shell, a ship." Thorne stood over their shoulders, his hands on his hips, the universal pose of a man about to make a bad decision. "A ship? A derelict? We can salvage it. It'll be worth more than the whole damn comet. Get a cutter crew ready." Ilara's face paled. "Captain, we don't know what's in there. It could be unstable. It's radiating a kind of energy I've never seen before. A harmonic frequency that... it's like a language." Thorne scoffed. "A language? Dr. Vance, I didn't sign on to translate rocks. I signed on to make a profit. Kalen, do you copy? Cutter crew? Let's go." But Kalen didn't move. He kept his eyes on the drone feed, watching as the drone's camera panned across a surface that wasn't cold, but warm, and wasn't inert, but seemed to breathe. He saw faint glowing lines pulsating across its surface, like veins. It was alive. "I have a bad feeling about this," Kalen muttered, pulling a quote from the depths of his long-ago childhood, a line that had always felt more like a prayer than a statement. Ilara leaned in close to him. "He'll destroy it, Kalen. He'll go in with cutting charges, and if this thing is what I think it is, it could release something. Not a weapon, necessarily, but maybe an unstable energy signature, something we can't control." Kalen looked at her, truly looked at her for the first time. She wasn't just some academic. She was scared, but also determined. "What do you think it is?" he asked. "A ship," she repeated. "But not a ship that travels through space. A ship that is space, or a part of it. The hum, I think it's a song to keep it in stasis. It's been out here for a long, long time, and we just woke it up." The cutter crew, oblivious to the deeper mysteries, began to set up their gear. Kalen watched their progress on the main view screen, his heart a frantic drum against his ribs. He had to stop them. But how? He was just a technician. Thorne had authority. A direct confrontation would get him locked in the brig, or worse, ejected. He had to be smarter. He thought of the android in the story he'd read, the one that needed fixing, and how the repairman had found a way to work around the system, to find a different solution. Kalen looked at the diagnostic terminal again, the one that monitored the drill systems. He knew its quirks, its vulnerabilities. He could make it look like a malfunction, a safety-critical system failure. That would give him a window of time. "Look, I've got a plan," Kalen said, his voice low. "I can make it look like the grav dampeners are failing. That'll force Thorne to pull everyone back for repairs." Ilara's eyes lit up. "Can you do that without him knowing it's a bypass?" Kalen gave her a grim smile. "I've been fixing Omnicorp's perfect systems for 37 years. There's always a back door." He went to his console, his fingers flying across the keys with a practiced, almost artistic grace. The system blinked and flickered, a silent conversation between man and machine. He sent a false diagnostic report, a cascade of red alerts that screamed gravitational imbalance and critical structural integrity failure. The alarm sirens blared, The ship's internal lights flashed red. Thorne's angry face appeared on the comm screen. "Kalen, what the hell is going on?" "I don't know, Captain. The system just went haywire. It's saying the comet's gravity is pulling on our structural integrity. We need to pull back now, before the ship tears itself apart." Thorne hesitated, his mind likely weighing profit against catastrophic loss. "Damn it. All crews, pull back, now." As the cutter team grudgingly retreated, Kalen let out a quiet sigh of relief. He had bought them time, but not much. "What now?" Ilara asked, her eyes still fixed on the flickering console. Kalen looked at the view screen, at the heart of the comet, pulsing with a life it had held in secret for eons. "Now," he said, "we find a way in, a better way, a quieter way." The low hum from the comet felt like a shared secret between the comet, the xenolinguist, and the repairman. The whispers in the data stream were getting louder. The silence that followed Thorne's retreat was a palpable thing, heavy with unspoken questions. Kalen and Ilara hurried to the maintenance bay, their shared purpose a fragile flickering light against the captain's greed. They needed a way into the comet, a non-destructive method that wouldn't set off alarms or risk damaging the ship's biological core. Kalen ran diagnostics on the drifter's mining drone, the same one he had used to probe the comet. "It's not built for this," he said, his fingers flying across the console. "The camera's low res, the sensors are all geared for mineralogy, we'll be blind." But Ilara had an idea. She rummaged through her personal equipment, pulling out a handful of bizarre crystalline devices. "These are bioacoustic resonators," she explained, her face glowing with a quiet intensity. "They translate harmonic frequencies into visual data. If that hum is a song, this can show us the notes." Kalen was skeptical, but he didn't have a better plan. He re-rigged the drone, integrating Ilara's devices into its chassis. It was a messy, jury-rigged solution, a classic Rusty Mackenzie special. The drone now looked like a techno-organic spider, its metal legs festooned with shimmering crystals. He sent it back down the borehole, the low thrum of the comet now a pulsating vibration on the control panel. The live feed flickered to life. Where before there was only polished obsidian, now a cascade of color appeared. Swirling patterns of light pulsed across the surface, each color and shape corresponding to a different note in the comet's song. "It's beautiful," Kalen breathed. The drone's camera, now enhanced by Ilara's tech, zoomed in on the glowing lines, the veins he had seen earlier. They weren't just lines, they were intricate circuits of light, flowing with a warm, golden energy. Ilara's voice was filled with a tremor of awe. "It's neural network. The ship's systems are biological. They don't just process data, they process consciousness. The ship is one being, and the people inside are its thoughts." Kalen felt a chill run down his spine. They hadn't just found a derelict. They had found a sleeping titan, a sentient vessel with a million stories trapped inside its luminous core. He guided the drone, following the golden lines. They seemed to form a kind of map, leading to a single, central point. The drone's sensors screamed a warning, not of danger, but of a massive energy spike. A new quote popped into Kalen's head, one he remembered from a movie he'd seen as a kid. "The ability to speak does not make you intelligent." He thought of Thorne and the rest of the crew and their simple predatory desire. They were looking at a living wonder, and all they saw was a resource to be harvested. Then Thorne's voice boomed over the comms. "Kalen, the grav dampeners are reading green. That was a false alarm. What the hell did you do?" Kalen froze. He had bought himself time, but now the window was closing. He had to be quick. "Just a sensor glitch, Captain. We're back online," he lied, his fingers trembling as he tried to hide the live feed from the main console. But it was no use. Thorne's angry, suspicious face filled the screen. "You lied to me. I knew it. What are you hiding?" Before Kalen could answer, Ilara, with a flash of bold courage, stepped into view. "Captain, we've found something incredible. This isn't a ship to be salvaged. It's a living entity. We need to respect it, not tear it apart." Thorne's eyes narrowed.
A living entity? You're both insane. Get back to your stations or I'll put you both on the next cargo shuttle to the nearest penal colony. The confrontation was out in the open. The quiet, unspoken tension between Prophet and Discovery had finally erupted into open conflict. Kalen looked at the golden, pulsating heart on the screen, and then at Ilara's determined face. He knew he couldn't back down. The stakes were too high, the discovery too profound. He made a choice. He used his access codes to lock Thorn out of the main ship systems, cutting his connection to the rest of the crew. "I'm sorry, Captain," he said, his voice now firm, "but this is bigger than credits." He turned back to the drone, his focus now absolute. "Ilara, what's our next move?" She pointed to the center of the golden pattern. "That's the nucleus, the core. I think if we touch it, it will wake up."
The drone approached the core, its camera capturing the final, critical moment. The hum became a crescendo, a rising tide of sound and light that filled the small room. Kalen reached for the activate button on his console, and the fate of the comet and everyone on board the drifter hung in the balance. The light from the comet's core wasn't a flash, but a slow, graceful bloom. It spread across the view screen, pushing back the blackness of space with a soft, warm incandescence. The hum, which had been a low thrum, rose in pitch until it was a clear, resonant tone, like a tuning fork, vibrating at the frequency of a new beginning. Kalen and Ilara watched in silent awe as the golden neural pathways of the ship being began to shift and reconfigure. The pulsating patterns coalesced, forming intricate, three-dimensional geometric shapes that slowly, deliberately began to spin and separate. The shapes were beautiful and complex, but Kalen, the consummate repairman, saw them for what they were: schematics, blueprints for a journey. The core was not just waking up, it was preparing to move. The silence was broken by the frantic blare of the ship's comms. Thorn's face, now flushed with impotent rage, appeared on a small auxiliary screen. "Kalen, I don't know what you did, but I'm going to personally throw you out the nearest airlock," he bellowed. "You've sabotaged this mission. You've cost Omnicorp millions." Kalen just shook his head, looking past the captain's greed to the wonder on the main screen. "You see it, don't you, Captain?" Kalen said, his voice quiet, almost mournful. "You're looking at a new horizon, and all you can see is a broken piggy bank." Thorn's rant was drowned out by a low, rumbling shudder that coursed through the stardust drifter. The comet was moving. Slowly, majestically, it was peeling away from the orbital tether of the drifter, leaving the mining vessel behind. Ilara's console began to flicker with new data, a torrent of information she could barely process. "They're awake," she said, her voice trembling with emotion, "and they're communicating with us. They're projecting a message. It's a history, a story. They're a species of cosmic nomads. Their star died out centuries ago, and they've been traveling the void ever since, in a deep stasis, a long sleep waiting for a habitable world. The comet, their ancestral home and sole means of survival, was now fully online, its surface glowing with an ethereal light that was not a warning, but an invitation." Suddenly, a new image appeared on the screen, projected directly from the comet. It was an alien face, but it was not monstrous. It was a face of pure, liquid light, a being of shimmering energy with eyes of deep, compassionate indigo. The voice that spoke through the comms was a soothing chord, a harmony of notes that settled in Kalen's heart. "Thank you, small one. Your touch was unexpected. Your kindness, a forgotten memory." Kalen felt tears well in his eyes. He wasn't a hero, a savior, or an explorer. He was just a man who had done the right thing for no other reason than it was the right thing to do. The being's message continued. "We offer you a choice. We will travel on. We cannot stay.
Our purpose is to find a new home for our people, but we do not wish to leave you stranded." The creature, the heart of the comet, presented a schematic. It was a smaller, more graceful version of their own ship, designed to be powered by the very same energy that flowed through their veins. Captain Thorne's face reappeared on the screen, a desperate, pathetic flicker of a man losing his control. "Take it! Take their offer! Get us out of here!" he shrieked. Kalen ignored him. He looked at Ilara, whose eyes were still fixed on the luminous alien. He knew her answer before she spoke. She wanted to go with them, to be a part of this new chapter, to document their journey and learn their language of light. She was drawn to the unknown, to the beauty of a universe yet to be understood. Kalen, a man who had spent his life fixing broken machines, felt a pull to this living, breathing miracle. For the first time, he wasn't just fixing something. He was part of its creation, part of its journey. He was no longer a glorified repairman, he was a pioneer. He smiled. "You're going to need a good mechanic," he said to the being of light. The alien smiled back, a ripple of shimmering light. "We already have one," it said. The Stardust Drifter was left behind, a dark, inert speck against the growing radiance of the comet. Kalen and Ilara stood together in the small, warm bay of their new ship, the one they would pilot into the great unknown. They looked out at the vastness of space, a void that no longer felt empty, but full of promise. Kalen put a quote from his memory into the universe, a thought that felt more profound now than ever. "The ability to speak does not make you intelligent." Thorne could speak of profit and loss, but he could never understand the silent, sublime language of a cosmic heart. The comet, a beacon of hope and a testament to life's endurance, accelerated into the void, its new, very human crew, ready for the next adventure.
I hope you enjoyed this story. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and ring that bell to be the first to know when I upload a new story. So until we meet again, have a fantastic time and be kind to each other.